The national median home price crossed $300,000 this year. Mortgage rates have stayed above 6% long enough that most people have stopped waiting for them to drop. And somewhere in that squeeze, a quiet counter-economy has been building in places that most Americans couldn't find on a map. 15 towns, scattered across Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Oklahoma, West Virginia, New York, and Illinois, are offering free land, cash grants up to $50,000, 5-year property tax waivers, state tax codes that exempt every dollar of retirement income from taxes entirely. This isn't a charity. These towns have a math problem. Decades of farm crisis, industrial collapse, and rural flight left them with too much vacant land, too few taxpayers, and a shrinking population that skews older every year. Between July of 2023 and June of 2024, 76% of non-metropolitan counties in the United States recorded more deaths than births. These towns ran the numbers and decided that giving land away was cheaper than watching it sit empty. For the retiree on a fixed income, for the remote worker tired of paying San Francisco rent on a Denver salary, the math runs the other way. And it hasn't looked this good in decades. What follows is 15 towns, 15 real incentive structures, and the honest trade-offs that come with each one. By the end, the question isn't whether you can afford to move to one of these places, it's whether you can afford not to. Here are 15 forgotten American towns where you can live for free. Mankato, Kansas. Mankato, Kansas has around 900 residents, sits deep in Jewell County, and is giving away land, not discounting it, and not offering a forgivable loan on it, giving it away. The program is the Johnson Edition, a 26-lot subdivision on a cul-de-sac where the streets are already paved and the utilities are already stubbed in and waiting. The city's requirements are straightforward. Start construction within 6 months, finish within 2 years, build at least 1,200 square feet. Those conditions would be standard language on any building permit. For a free lot, they are practically nothing. The cost of living in Mankato runs about 30% below the national average. Kansas exempts Social Security from state income tax entirely, and public pensions are exempt too. The flat state income tax rate sits at 4.4%, lower than most states running graduated brackets. The healthcare infrastructure here is unusual for a town this size. Jewell County Hospital completed a full remodel in January of 2021. It runs 24-hour emergency care, physical therapy, CT, and MRI services. For a retiree weighing the real risk of aging in a small town, a locally accessible emergency room with diagnostic imaging is not a minor detail. The town also built the Rock Hills Trail System specifically to attract active residents. Mankato is not trying to survive, it's trying to grow, and it's using free land to do it. Elwood, Nebraska. Elwood, Nebraska solves a problem that most free land towns ignore entirely. The land is free, but building on it isn't. The lot itself, a 110 by 115 feet, costs nothing, but Elwood also offers a 10% reimbursement on construction costs, capped at $25,000, paid after the home is completed and occupied as a primary residence. That's not a tax credit you wait 18 months to see. That's a check that arrives when the work is done. Applicants put down a $500 refundable deposit and pull a $50 building permit. The home must become a primary residence. That's the whole deal. Nebraska made its own significant move for retirees starting in the 2024 tax year, fully eliminating the state tax on Social Security income. Elwood's effective property tax rate of 1.76% sits higher than the Kansas towns, but for a household whose primary income is Social Security, that state exemption reshapes the annual calculation considerably. The town sits 2.5 hours west of Lincoln, near Johnson Lake, which adds a recreational dimension that purely agricultural towns often lack. The nearest hospital, Cozad Community Hospital, is 32 miles out. Lexington Regional is 41 miles. Those are honest drives, not emergencies, but worth knowing before committing. Free land plus a $25,000 construction rebate plus zero state tax on Social Security. Most incentive programs offer one of those things. Elwood offers all three. Pawnee City, Nebraska. Pawnee City watched its population fall to 930 residents in 2023 and responded with the most aggressive financial incentive on this entire list. The program is Vision 2030. It offers up to $50,000 in down payment assistance on newly built single-family homes. The structure is a 0% interest, no payment second mortgage, which functions as a grant for as long as the homeowner stays in the property. Move out and the balance comes due. Stay and it disappears. The homes are built to modern specifications, 1,220 to 1,280 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, unfinished basements, priced around $325,000. The $50,000 subsidy brings the effective purchase price to $275,000. That's below the national median for new construction. The income threshold is set at 120% of the area median income. For a single person in Pawnee County, that's $75,900 annually. For a couple, $86,700. These are not poverty level eligibility gates. They're designed for households that earn too much for conventional assistance, but still can't compete in a major metro market. Here's the number that puts the land cost in perspective. Lots in Pawnee City are valued at roughly $1,000. In the Lincoln or Omaha metro, comparable lots run $100,000. That $100,000 gap is the entire logic of geographic arbitrage, and Pawnee City is betting that the right people will find it. Claremont, Minnesota. Claremont's empty lot program has a specific target audience: households priced out of the Minneapolis-St. Paul market. Free lots, or lots at reduced fees, go to applicants below an income threshold of $129,000 for families of 3 or more. The program mandates modular construction through Arden Home Services. That sounds like a constraint. In practice, it controls build costs and compresses the timeline in ways that benefit the buyer as much as the city. Applicants also complete 8 hours of homeowner education and work with a city-appointed counselor to secure a USDA mortgage. For a first-time buyer who has never navigated a construction loan, that guided process has real value. So now for the detail that separates Claremont from every other free land program on this list. It sits within 30 miles of the Mayo Clinic health system in Faribault. Not a rural satellite with limited services, the actual Mayo network. For a retiree evaluating small town living through the lens of healthcare access, that proximity is extraordinarily rare at this price point. Minnesota taxes Social Security at the state level, but provides a full deduction for joint filers whose adjusted gross income falls below $108,320. Most people moving to Claremont for workforce housing will qualify for that subtraction. Claremont is building its next generation of homeowners, not just filling vacant lots. For the right buyer, 30 miles from the world's most recognized medical network. That's a different kind of value. Manilla, Iowa. Manilla, Iowa is where the incentives stop being additive and start being layered so deep that the upfront cost of homeownership nearly disappears. Start with the free lot, add waived utility hookup fees for water, sewer, and electricity, a cost that can clear $5,000 in most municipalities. Stack on a 5-year, 100% property tax abatement on the new home's full assessed value. Then add up to $34,999 in down payment assistance for first-time buyers who qualify on income. No single piece of that is unique on this list. Together, they eliminate almost every upfront cost of building a home except the construction itself. Iowa added its own layer in 2023, when the state made all retirement income tax exempt for residents 55 and older. Social Security, pensions, 401 distributions, IRA withdrawals. None of it taxable at the state level. For a retiree arriving in Manila, the state retirement tax burden is zero, on top of everything the town is already offering. The Sunrise Edition project has produced over 20 new homes so far. That is a functioning neighborhood, not a pilot program. Manila is in southern Crawford County, about 2 hours from Des Moines. Regional centers handle larger medical and retail needs. But for a retiree whose income is fully tax exempt and whose housing costs start at free land, the logistics of a regional drive become a much smaller number in the life cost calculation. Marne, Iowa. Marne, Iowa has 120 people. It offers free residential lots with one requirement: build a home of at least 1,200 square feet. That is the entire program. No construction rebate, no income verification, no mandated builder or required counselor, no utility incentive. You take the lot, you build the house, you live there. Modular homes are permitted, which lowers the construction barrier significantly. Marne is the most unfiltered version of what free land means in rural America. The town needs occupied structures replacing dilapidated ones. It needs the property tax revenue that comes from a built home, and it needs people, not just buildings, to keep the community from contracting further. Iowa's statewide retirement income exemption for residents 55 and older applies here too. Property taxes on newly built homes in Marne are minimal simply because assessed values in a town this size stay low. What Marne cannot offer is equally worth stating plainly. There are no major local amenities. There is no nearby hospital. There are no cultural institutions or commercial corridors. Residents drive to regional centers for almost everything beyond daily basics. Marne is the right answer for a specific kind of person, someone who values land, quiet, and cost above proximity to services. For that person, it represents one of the least expensive legal paths to owning a home in the United States. Osborne, Kansas. Osborne, Kansas is a town of 1,500 people that runs infrastructure more typically associated with cities 5 times its size. The Sunset Edition Freeland program operates on familiar terms: build within a defined period, meet minimum square footage. What makes Osborne different is what surrounds the program: a municipal golf course, a municipal airport, and Osborne County Memorial Hospital, which provides 24-hour emergency services and runs rotating specialty clinics that bring visiting cardiologists and urologists directly to town. That last detail changes the risk calculus of rural retirement. In most small towns, cardiology means a long drive to a regional hub, scheduled weeks out. Osborne negotiated a model where the specialist comes to the patient. For an older resident managing a chronic condition, that's not a convenience. It's a meaningful reduction in the barrier to necessary care. Kansas's full Social Security exemption and public pension exemption apply here. The flat 4.4% income tax rate keeps the math predictable year over year. Osborne's economic base has taken hits from domestic outmigration as younger residents leave for Wichita and Kansas City, but the healthcare and government sectors have maintained enough stability that the town isn't in freefall. It's in a deliberate holding pattern, building housing to replace the residents it lost. The golf course and airport are not accidents. They're the town's answer to a question it already knows retirees ask: what do I do here on a Tuesday? Marquette, Kansas. Marquette, Kansas has around 600 residents and an asset that no other freeland program on this list can claim: the Kansas Motorcycle Museum and a downtown that draws visitors. Most towns offering free lots are offering exactly that: a quiet parcel with minimal infrastructure and an expectation that residents will build their own social life. Marquette is trying to attract people who are also drawn to the town as a place with a personality. That distinction matters more than it sounds. Recruiting retirees and remote workers isn't only a housing cost calculation. People choose places they want to live, not just places they can afford. Marquette is building a community identity alongside its housing inventory, which is a different and arguably more durable than growth strategy. The free lot program runs on standard Kansas terms. The cost of living in central Kansas towns like Marquette sits roughly 18 to 20% below the national average. Social Security is fully exempt from state taxes. Public pensions are exempt. The flat income tax rate runs lower than most graduated state structures. The trails and parks add daily recreational value that purely agricultural towns struggle to provide. The museum draws external visitors, which supports the local economy in ways that a residential-only strategy cannot. For a retiree who wants a community that chose to have an identity, not just cheap square footage, Marquette makes a case the other Kansas towns don't quite reach. Plainville, Kansas. Plainville is the largest of the Kansas freeland towns on this list, with just over 2,000 residents. That additional density translates into more local commerce, more social infrastructure, and a different feel from the towns of 900 or 600. The program goes beyond the land itself. Plainville layers direct tax incentives on top of the free lot, specifically targeting the costs that hit new homeowners in year 2 and 3, after the upfront subsidy wears off. Many programs cover the cost of arrival. Plainville acknowledges that affordability has to extend beyond the first mortgage statement. The Rooks County Health Center serves Plainville with high patient satisfaction ratings, providing local medical access without requiring a major regional drive. Kansas's statewide Social Security and public pension exemptions apply here, and the flat income tax structure keeps long-term planning simple. For a retiree comparing towns in the Great Plains, Plainville offers more community infrastructure than the smallest Kansas towns without stepping up to a city, and the layered tax incentives address a practical reality. The most common reason people leave rural incentive programs isn't that the land wasn't free, it's that the ongoing costs surprise them. Curtis, Nebraska. Curtis, Nebraska does something no other town on this list does. Free lots are available for commercial and industrial use, alongside the residential ones. That single difference opens a door for the retiree who still runs a small business, a remote professional who needs a dedicated workspace, or someone with a side operation that requires physical infrastructure. Most rural incentive programs are residential only by design. Curtis treats incoming residents as potential economic contributors, not just new taxpayers. The town has also historically paid families to enroll children in the Medicine Valley School District. The logic is direct. A school's enrollment determines its budget, its programs, and ultimately its survival. A town that invests in its own school signals long-term stability. And that signal matters to anyone evaluating whether a small community is worth committing to. Curtis is positioned near hospitals in Cambridge and McCook, both within roughly 30 minutes, providing regional emergency access without requiring a large local medical facility. Nebraska's full Social Security exemption, in effect since the 2024 tax year, applies here. For a retiree with any commercial interest, even a modest one, the free industrial lot is a differentiator that exists nowhere else on this list. New Richland, Minnesota. New Richland offers free land through the Homestake Project, free plats for qualified residents, with reductions in assessment fees for those who qualify for financial assistance. The town sits in southern Minnesota, roughly between Minneapolis and Des Moines, off the main corridors. It is genuinely quiet, genuinely affordable, and genuinely overlooked, which is, by this point in the list, the pattern worth recognizing. The Mayo Clinic health system in Faribault is about 30 miles out, the same network and roughly the same drive as Claremont. For a retired person choosing between Minnesota freeland towns, healthcare access is effectively equivalent. The differentiator is the community itself. New Richland is smaller, more rural, and quieter than Claremont. Minnesota's Social Security exemption for joint filers with adjusted gross income below $108,320 applies here. The Homestake Project name carries deliberate historical resonance. Homesteading as a legal mechanism shaped rural Minnesota through the 19th century. The town is extending the same invitation under different terms, for a different era and a different kind of settler, one with a laptop and a fixed income instead of a plow. The offer is structurally identical: show up, commit, build, and if free land in the Midwest is starting to feel like one idea running through 11 zip codes, the next two stops are built on an entirely different model. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa doesn't offer land, it offers cash. $10,000 to remote workers who move to the city and stay for at least 1 year. Tulsa Remote, backed by the George Kaiser Family Foundation, has been running since 2018. It has generated over $600 million in local economic activity. For every dollar the foundation invests in the program, more than $4 returns to the local economy. Those numbers have made Tulsa Remote the national template, studied and imitated by programs in other cities. The money arrives as a lump sum after a qualifying home purchase, or in monthly installments for renters. It lands in a city where the median home price sits at $225,167, well below the national median. Oklahoma's effective property tax rate of 0.78% is among the lowest in the country. Participants also receive a membership to a premier co-working space and access to a pre-built social community of other transplants. For anyone who has tried to build social infrastructure from scratch in a new city, that pre-built network has practical value that the $10,000 alone doesn't capture. The retention rate runs approximately 70% after year one. That figure tells the real story. The cash gets people to Tulsa. The city keeps them. A combination of arts, a growing healthcare and aerospace sector, and affordable homeownership is doing most of the work. Oklahoma partially taxes retirement income, which is less favorable than Iowa or Illinois. For a household still generating remote work income, the $10,000 grant plus a 0.78% property tax rate makes the math work regardless. Morgantown and Lewisburg, West Virginia. West Virginia runs one program, Ascend WV, with two very different answers depending on what kind of life you're building. The offer is $12,000 over 2 years, $10,000 in year one, $2,000 more if you stay through year two. The package also includes a digital outdoor recreation pass covering whitewater rafting, skiing, and hiking, plus free co-working space access. The outdoor element isn't window dressing, it's the state's core pitch, mountains, rivers, and public land that most states charge for. Morgantown is the university town option, population 30,000. Home to West Virginia University and the WVU medicine system. Median home price of $329,000. It skews younger, more professionally active, and more urban than most towns on this list. Lewisburg is a different calculation entirely. Population under 4,000. Median home price of $351,900. Slightly higher than Morgantown, but on a different kind of street. 25.7% of Lewisburg's residents are over 65. The town has been recognized nationally as one of the better small-town retirement destinations in the country. West Virginia's effective property tax rate of 0.58% is the lowest of any state represented on this list, and the state is phasing out its tax on Social Security benefits entirely by 2026. For a retiree who wants mountains, low property taxes, and access to outdoor recreation that most states sell at a premium. As West Virginia offers two different personalities inside the same program, pick the one that fits. Buffalo, New York. Buffalo, New York has an estimated 6,000 vacant residential lots. The city is selling them for $1,000 each. The Urban Homestead Program, updated through the 2025 Homestead Plan, gives buyers 4 ways to use that lot. Build a new 1 to 3 unit residence, completed within 24 months. Expand the side yard of an adjoining property. Renovate an abandoned structure. Or maintain the parcel as a community garden or urban farm for 5 years. That side yard option is worth pausing on. For a Buffalo homeowner already living in the city, buying the neighboring vacant lot for $1,000 and folding it into their property requires no construction, no loan, and no building timeline. $1,000 buys a permanent expansion of your land. The New York exempts Social Security from state income tax and provides a $20,000 exclusion on other retirement income sources, including private pensions and 401 distributions. For a retiree who has spent their career in a state that taxes all of that income, New York's retirement exemptions represent a genuine shift in annual take-home. Buffalo's median home value sits around $250,000, accessible compared to anywhere else in New York State. The city is transitioning from steel and manufacturing into healthcare and technology. The Urban Homestead Program is one piece of a larger strategy to convert thousands of vacant parcels into occupied, maintained, tax-generating property. And unlike every other town on this list, Buffalo is a city. Walkable neighborhoods, cultural institutions, a food scene, sports franchises. For the retiree who wants urban living without urban pricing, Buffalo is the option this list was missing until now. Grafton, Illinois. Grafton, Illinois sits at the confluence of the Mississippi and Illinois rivers. The geography is not incidental. It defines the town, the water, the bluffs, the light off the river in the afternoon. Grafton is a scenic destination that also happens to have a real estate deal. The town offers lots in the Grafton Hills subdivision for $5,000, with a $5,000 rebate from the city upon completion of a home within 3 years. The net cost of the land is $0. The rebate model is deliberate. Paying up front and earning it back through completion filters out speculators and idle purchasers. Only buyers who actually build get the money back. The subdivision doesn't accumulate half-finished lots. Anna, Illinois carries the highest effective property tax burden of any location on this list. 2.07%. That's a real number that belongs in any honest conversation about Grafton. But Illinois also has a retirement tax exemption that is the most comprehensive in the country. The state exempts all retirement income from state income tax, Social Security, pensions, 401 distributions, IRA withdrawals. Every dollar a retiree with meaningful pension income or investment distributions arrives in Illinois and pays zero state tax on any of it. In a state routinely criticized for its tax environment, that single provision is one of the most powerful retirement income protections available anywhere in the United States. For a retiree managing a property tax line item against a background of zero state income tax, as the math on Grafton becomes clear, the $5,000 comes back, the river stays. 15 towns, 3 states in the Midwest offering free land, 2 mountain towns paying remote workers to show up, and upstate New York City selling vacant lots for $1,000. A riverfront Illinois town that returns your land cost on completion. The through line is not generosity. Every incentive on this list exists because the town ran a calculation and decided that an occupied property is worth more than a vacant one, and that the cost of giving something away is lower than the cost of watching it sit empty for another decade. The trade-offs are real. Smaller towns mean longer drives to specialists. Building timelines require planning. Illinois' property tax rate is what it is, and Marne, Iowa has a population of 120 people, which means you know exactly what you're choosing. What these towns offer, they say it collectively, is a correction. The assumption that affordable and livable cannot coexist in the same zip code is not a law of economics. It is a habit of attention. These towns stayed affordable precisely because attention moved elsewhere. The incentives exist because they are trying directly and deliberately to redirect it. The land is there. The programs are funded. The tax codes are written. The question was never whether these places were real. It was whether anyone was paying attention.